Did you take the wrong gate? This is the VIP line, not a soup kitchen." The words came from a woman in a high-end airline uniform, her tone flat and mechanical, like it had been rehearsed 100 times to demote others without ever needing to raise her voice. Elena stood there, slender, silent, in the grand concourse of Logan International Airport, a place where every footstep seemed measured by the echo of Christian Louboutins, and every glance weighed your worth by the logos stitched on your being. Rolex, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Sky Sovereign Royal Class. But on her, there was nothing worth pricing. A faded grey coat with frayed cuffs. An old moss-green backpack slumped on one shoulder. A rolling suitcase is clicking unevenly from a broken wheel. Worn-out leather shoes with thinning heels. And in her hand, a crumpled economy boarding pass, damp with sweat. No one asked where she came from. They just knew she didn't belong here. A young man in a sleek black suit leaned in to whisper to his girlfriend, "Looks like she just walked out of a Salvation Army store." A female blogger live streaming on Instagram scoffed, "Where are the airport cops?" Someone clearly wandered in from the bus terminal. Elena said nothing. She stood tall, as if none of it reached her. But in truth, she heard every word. She simply chose silence. Silence wasn't weakness. It was the last armor to protect her dignity when everything else had already been stripped away in public. No one knew who she was. No one understood why she had appeared here alone and seemingly incompatible with everything around her. But had they looked closely, they would have seen something in her eyes. No permission, but resolve, the resolve of someone stepping into a world of splendor and refusing to bow. Because the only thing Elena needed right now wasn't accepted. It was to make it to her sister's wedding before the doors to happiness closed forever. But Logan was no place for simple stories. Here kindness was considered awkward, and an old coat could get you pushed out of a premium queue simply because you didn't sparkle, and one day they would come to realize the only thing truly tattered today wasn't the backpack on her shoulder. It was the character of the entire system they so proudly defended. Logan International, a name that sounds like the gateway to the modern world, but in reality, it resembles a temple of supremacy. This place was never designed for everyone to belong. Every square inch glistens with the polish of power status and exclusion. The air here doesn't just carry the scent of expensive niche perfumes, it reeks of judgment. The click-clack of high heels echoes like war drums declaring who belongs and who doesn't. Check-in counters aren't just for procedures, they are silent judgment platforms where staff are authorized to adjust their attitude based on the card you pull from your wallet. Inside the first-class lounge, people in bespoke suits wearing wireless earbuds, typing away on Swiss-brand laptops, sip espresso with smug half-smiles anytime someone dares to pass by without fitting the aesthetic standard. In the corner sat Tracy Hammond, a ground staff member of Sky Sovereign, her back straight, as if guarding the gates of a kingdom. Her makeup was immaculate hair, tightly pinned uniform, perfectly pressed, without a single wrinkle. But her eyes, sharp as a razor, ready to slice open anyone not of the right class. Across the room stood Vivian Lockhart, an influencer with over 1 million followers, dressed in a designer tracksuit as if starring in an airport fashion shoot. She live-streamed her luxury afternoon tea moment while glancing at Elena through her phone camera like she was documenting a system error. Next to her, Landon Pierce, heir to a hedge fund dynasty, reclined on a leather chair, feet propped up on a Rimowa suitcase, swirling whiskey in hand. Every smirk from him seemed to say, "I don't know who you are, but I'm certain you don't belong here." Elena walked past each of these zones like a scratch across marble walls. No one paused to ask. No one was curious enough to look closer. All they knew was she didn't sparkle. She didn't wear a diamond watch. She wasn't escorted by someone important enough. And most of all, she wasn't welcome. But Elena kept walking, step by step, steady and calm, as if every glare was merely the wind and she was the stone unmoved by the current, because she knew better than anyone. When you walk into the lion's den of the arrogant, the only way to survive is silence, until you're the one in control. She didn't know someone was live streaming her. She didn't turn around when the laughter burst out behind her. Elena simply bent down to tie the loose shoelace, and as she knelt, a sharp female voice rang out from the check-in counter. What a lovely sight, so used to groveling that she can't tell which place is off limits anymore. Sorry, sweetheart, no amount of bowing will upgrade your ticket to business class here. Tracy didn't need to speak loudly. She just spoke clearly enough for every nearby passenger to hear. Enough to make every eye turn toward Elena like she was the airport's pre-flight entertainment. A middle-aged man in an Armani suit smirked. Nowadays people think a cheap ticket is enough to buy their way into our league. Elena stood up slowly. She didn't explain. She didn't retreat. Tickets still in hand, her eyes cold and clear, stared straight ahead, as if no one had just insulted her. She stepped toward the security gate, but they wouldn't let her go that easily. A group of financial consultants in matching grey suits, carrying monogrammed briefcases, were waiting for the scanner and had spotted the perfect target to mock. One of them, hair slicked back with glossy gel, pointed at Elena's backpack and yelled, "Hey, has anyone called sanitation? That bag probably contaminated the whole area." The group erupted in laughter. Another one picked up a plastic tray and tossed it at Elena's feet. "Feel free to dump that disaster of luggage here and throw yourself on it too. Looks like someone got off at the wrong terminal." The beeping of the scanners was drowned out by laughter. Jeers piled one after another. Contempt filled the air. And once again, Elena said nothing. She just bent down, picked up the plastic tray, and passed through the security gate like someone invisible. But at that exact moment on the other side of the gate, an elderly man stumbled. He crashed into a perfume display, then slumped onto a bench, barely able to stay upright. His coat slid off his shoulders, his face pale and ashen. No one moved. No one paused their news feed. No one set down their cappuccino, except Elena. Without hesitation, she dropped her backpack to the floor, pushed through the frozen crowd, and knelt beside the man while people were still laughing at her. "I'm here. Just breathe slowly. You're going to be all right." Her voice was soft but steady. Her hands gently steadied his shoulder, checked his pulse, and wiped the sweat from his forehead with a tissue. She had no idea that this man was Nolan Prescott, the owner of the entire Sky Sovereign Airlines empire. All she saw was someone in need of help, and that was the only thing that made her stop, even if it meant that because of this, her last flight of the day might take off without her on board. While the crowd still fumbled to snap photos of the strange woman playing angel at the airport, Elena, her faded coat still wrapped around her knees, pressed against the cold marble floor, shielded the unconscious man from the draft. "Can you breathe, sir? Is there chest pain? I need to get medical help right away." She didn't wait for anyone. Her voice cracked through the fog of apathy. "Please, can someone call medical services? Please now." A ground staffer approached, then froze. His eyes caught a glimpse of the card peeking from the old man's chest pocket. His face instantly turned pale. "Oh my God, that's..." Before he could finish, a man in a grey suit and earpiece came sprinting over. He dropped to his knees beside Elena, panic in his voice. "Mr. Prescott, thank heavens we finally found you. Security lost track of you after Gate 9. We thought you'd gotten into the car already." Elena frowned. She turned to look more closely at the man she'd just helped silver hair in disarray, wrinkled skin. But those eyes were unforgettable if you'd ever read Forbes. Nolan Prescott, the reclusive billionaire, CEO of Sky Sovereign, the oldest name on the list of the world's 20 most powerful figures in global aviation. She froze. In that split second, it dawned on her she had just knelt down to save a man who held the power to shut down this entire airport with a single phone call. And more importantly, he had seen everything. From the moment she was shoved from the VIP line, from Tracy's cutting remarks, from the mocking laughter of the bloggers, businessmen, and first-class passengers, from the tray thrown at her feet, the insults, the glares, from the way she was treated like a stain on their polished world. He said nothing, just lay still, eyes half open, fixed on Elena without blinking. And in that gaze, there was no pity, only deep respect. As the paramedics took over, Elena stepped back. She retrieved her backpack, picked up the crumpled ticket, and was about to walk away. But right then, "What's your name?" His voice was hoarse, but steady. She turned back, hesitantly. Elena Wynne. "I won't forget that name." He spoke slowly, but with intention, and all the people who had just laughed at her began to squirm. They didn't understand. Why was the CEO of Sky Sovereign Airlines lying in the arms of someone they had just called trash? And why did he speak as if he had just discovered something priceless? In the one place they had all dismissed without a second thought. 2 hours later, the main terminal at Logan Airport felt frozen in thick, tense air. The lighting dimmed into focused spotlights. Media cameras lined up in rows. Sky Sovereign employees stood at attention on either side of the hall. The press had been summoned urgently. One by one, people sat in silence, not because they understood what was happening, but because they sensed something massive was about to crash down on them. And then he appeared. Nolan Prescott, no longer the frail-looking old man in a faded coat. Now he emerged in a charcoal bespoke suit, black tie, his eyes steely cold, and his voice didn't even need a microphone to make the entire room stop breathing. "I am Nolan Prescott, chairman of Prescott Global Holdings and CEO of Sky Sovereign Airlines." The terminal fell utterly silent. He didn't circle around the point. He didn't raise his voice. He commanded. "I just experienced the worst journey of my life, not because of our facilities, but because of the culture. I witnessed a woman being humiliated, kicked out of the VIP line, mocked in front of a crowd, all because of her old coat and worn backpack." He turned to the right, where Tracy Hammond stood, frozen in place. "Tracy, you didn't just fail to serve a customer, you disgraced the honor of this airline. As of this moment, you no longer work here." Sweat trickled down Tracy's face. Her lips trembled. "Mr. Prescott, I was just following standard protocol." "Protocol," his voice sharp as a blade. "What protocol gives you the right to dismiss kindness and human dignity?" He flicked his hand. A nearby assistant stepped forward and placed a termination letter in Tracy's hands, along with a document blacklisting her from every Sky Sovereign branch worldwide. The room erupted in shock. Someone dropped a glass. Vivian, the popular influencer, took a step back. "And you," he pointed directly at Vivian. "I hear you have over 1 million followers. That's unfortunate, because starting tomorrow every airline I own will ban your name unless you issue a public apology." Vivian turned as pale as a ghost. She glanced around, looking for a way out, but the spotlight pinned her in place, and the cameras had already begun recording the collapse she'd scripted herself with a single mocking story. Nolan took another step forward. I'm not doing this for my reputation. I'm doing it for her. He turned and pointed to the far end of the terminal, where Elena Wynne stood, still wearing her old coat backpack slung over one shoulder. And for the first time, the entire hall lifted their gaze to look at her. Elena didn't step onto the stage. She simply stood at the far end of the terminal among a crowd still reeling, unsure where the thunderbolt had come from. Her face didn't shine with victory nor waver with disbelief. There was only a calm gaze, the look of someone who had always known that truth would eventually find its way home. Nolan Prescott turned. He lifted his hand, not to beckon Elena forward, but to point out, before the world's press, "This is the woman you all laughed at." The airport fell completely silent. Phones once raised to capture humiliation now trembled not to mock, but to record a moment they knew would enter the history books of aviation. An assistant approached Elena, handing her a sleek black envelope. Inside was a Royal Sky membership card, the highest tier, the most exclusive, unlimited in power and time. But Elena didn't open it. She didn't step forward. She didn't cry. She didn't bow in thanks. She didn't tremble with joy. She simply looked toward Tracy, Vivian, and Landon, the ones who had flung cruelty at her like iron nails into an old wooden door. And she spoke gently, not loud, but clear enough to echo through every corner of the terminal. Never underestimate a plain woman. She paused, then delivered her words, each one as sharp as a sentence, because sometimes she's the one who owns the sky you beg to fly in. The airport held its breath. Behind her, the massive LED screen burst to life with a glowing message. Individuals permanently terminated for unethical conduct. Toward a passenger, Tracy Hammond, terminated. Vivian Locker, customer privileges revoked. Landon Pierce, all sponsorship contracts cancelled. This wasn't a notice. It was a verdict, and Elena didn't need to stand on a pedestal to become great. She simply needed to stand still and make the entire system bow to the very kindness it had once mocked. And while people still stood, in stunned silence, struck by a sentence, a stare, a silence that refused to kneel, Elena turned, dragging behind her the suitcase with the broken wheel, and walked away, never looking back. Because who needs recognition when your silence alone is powerful enough to change the world? Elena never took the director's chair. She didn't attend the gala in her honor. She didn't step onto a stage to sign contracts. She didn't accept a ceremonial wreath or a crystal trophy like those who once thought they were the center of the service industry. She simply left a folder on Nolan's desk. Inside were 23 new principles, a principle that service should never be based on appearance, a principle mandating full retraining of all customer-facing staff, a principle eliminating passenger class bias in all interactions, a principle enforcing strict disciplinary action for anyone involved in class-based discrimination, and one final page with no title. Just a single line: culture is not a slogan. It is how you treat the person with no power when you think no one's watching. The very next day, every global branch of Sky Sovereign received an internal email. Subject line: The Elena Wynne Protocol, a new cultural framework. Effective immediately and permanently. No one was asked to approve it. No one voted. No one objected. Because everyone understood, if it hadn't been for that woman in the old coat, Logan Airport would have become ground zero for a scandal that would have scorched every last thread of public trust in the empire of flight. Every customer service billboard was replaced with a quote from Elena. Every employee's job description began with the same foundational line, the very first thing she had done: know when to kneel, not to pick something up, but to lift someone else. The people who once looked down on her now had to study her in training manuals. Business schools across the US launched a course titled the Elena Standard, and while the world rushed to replicate that symbol, Elena was nowhere to be seen. She made no media appearances, refused to be photographed, rejected every partnership offer from other airlines. She asked Nolan for only one thing: don't let them do this to someone else. And he understood. She didn't need to become an icon. She only needed to do what others had forgotten. In a world that measures value by how brightly you shine, she walked in as a shadow and made every light turn to follow her. Not with spectacles, not with protest, but by quietly becoming the new standard. No one saw Elena leave Logan Airport. There was no farewell ceremony, no headline photo, no entourage, no applause echoing behind her. Only a security camera captured the scene. A woman pulling a worn suitcase, walking out through the west gate, a quiet exit where few ever pass. The afternoon sun slanted in, casting a long, thin, silent shadow across the stone floor. But that very afternoon, the entire aviation industry trembled. The hashtag Sky Sovereign Savior surged to the top of global trends. Major airports, JFK, Heathrow, Changi, all sent collaboration requests to the name Elena Wynn. But no one had her number. No email was ever returned. The press dubbed her the ghost of justice. Passengers called her the woman who made airlines bow. They couldn't find her, but no one could stop talking about her. In flight attendant training sessions, a video of her rescuing Nolan became a mandatory part of the curriculum. On internal billboards, her quote, "Never underestimate a plain woman," became a new creed for an industry that once idolized surface over substance. At Logan Airport, the same place that had once shoved her out of the VIP line, a small metal plaque now hung beside the boarding gate: Elena Wynn Passenger Zero. Culture rebooted here. Tracy was forced to issue a public apology to the entire staff, her face pale as she read her statement on the company's internal broadcast. Landon lost all sponsorship deals. Vivian had her brand contracts revoked. Every name that once contributed to the laughter that humiliated Elena was erased from the system as if they had never existed. But Elena never returned to witness it. She didn't need to, because what she had wanted was never revenge. All she ever wanted was for the world to stop disregarding people just because they don't shine on the outside. Some say she boarded a red-eye flight destination unknown. Others believe she turned down executive power to return to teaching at a small-town elementary school. But wherever she went, Elena did something that even the most powerful had never achieved. She made the system bow to kindness, not through force, but through shame. And sometimes, all it takes is one person who doesn't walk away, doesn't scream, doesn't strike back, but simply holds on to their goodness to the very end, to make an entire industry relearn how to be human. Some victories don't come from names being chanted. They come from a single quiet moment, when someone simply stands still and forces an entire system to take a hard look at itself. Elena never fought back with words. She didn't demand justice. She didn't seek revenge. All she did was hold on to her kindness while others chose to belittle her. And in the end, that kindness became the sharpest weapon of all, not one that wounded, but one that left behind consequences no one could undo. This story isn't just about a woman who was humiliated in a crowded place. It's about how easily we measure a person's worth by the clothes they wear, the ticket they hold, or the way they avoid our gaze. It's about all the Tracys, Vivians, and Landons out there in restaurants, at airports, in polished offices. And it's about a silent Elena you may have once seen walked past or smirked at, without ever knowing who they truly were. I believe true power doesn't need an introduction. It comes from unshakable integrity, from the way you choose to treat someone with less than you even when you think no one's watching. And sometimes what the world needs most isn't another great leader, but someone brave enough not to compromise their dignity, matter how much they're looked down on. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever held on to kindness even when no one thanked you, if you've ever stayed silent, not out of weakness, but because you knew you were right, then this story was made for you. Share this video if you believe that quiet kindness can still shift a broken system. And don't forget to like and comment. Tell us how Elena's journey made you feel. More importantly, subscribe to Toch Story so you won't miss the next story that touches your heart, those everyday moments that are powerful enough to move the world. Because sometimes the person you thought wasn't worth remembering today is the one the whole world will bow to tomorrow under a very different name.